What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Vulkan, and today we are talking about the best teams for Lyra. So just with every other tier list or comp list, please know this is my opinion. Your opinion might differ from mine. Everything you see out here is going to be as a result of testing things that work best for me and my play style. And these are the units that I feel kind of work best with Lyra. They provide the most value to make her powerful and maximize her benefits to the party. So we have three teams here. We have Damage Team 1, Damage Team 2, which is more of a cost-effective damage team, and then we have Healing and Support. Now, please note going into this, all the weapons are at level 140. All the weapons are at Advancement 3. Now, if you can manage to get a 6 on any of these characters, then these numbers will grow exponentially. So please keep that in mind. Okay, so let's get things started with the Damage Team 1 row. So this is the optimal team for damage from my testing. Yes, it will include 3 premium characters, and because of that, it might be out of reach for some players, but please do not worry. Like I mentioned, Damage Team 2 is a more cost-effective option. So to start things off, we have Lyra, the core of the team, okay? She brings some great passive healing, strong damage, and she's going to be the main damage dealer of this party. At A3, she has some really strong passives that are going to increase your final and physical damage, and her normal attacks will restore health equal to a portion of your attack, so you do have some self-support as well. Now, most of your damage is going to come from her discharge skill and then your barrage of punches. Now, the barrage of punches will melt enemies. It does a ton of damage, and it does it in a very short period of time. Now, she pairs well with these other 2 units we'll talk about. Now, the other 2 are going to provide passive damage and damage buffs to maximize what Lyra can do. In terms of your matrices, you want a 4-piece Lyra set, which, oh man, RNG, good luck trying to get that. If you can't get it, a 3-piece Shadow Swamp is a great alternative as well. Now, her Lyra set is great. It increases all of your damage, it increases your physical damage on top of that, so it's just really designed to blow things up. Now, like I mentioned, if you don't have that set, Shadow Swamp is a good one. It's going to increase your damage dealt according to how many nearby enemies there are. So it's a cheap set, and it's a good set, and it's one that I'm still using on some of my characters. So Lyra is the core. Who pairs well with her? Well, number 1 is Lyn. So again, I talked about 3 premium characters in this first one, so know that going into it. But Lyn brings some great passive damage to the table through her skill, especially when it's paired with physical units, because her skill will turn into a physical version of her skill. And it's a large AoE, and it deals damage over time to everything within its range. And if you can get her to A5, she's going to pick up a new bonus that'll allow you to gain extra weapon charge every second and increase your discharge skill damage. So all of that is great, but honestly, if you can't get her to A5, that's okay. She still has more than enough value on the team with her AoE dot, as well as damage, shatter, and charge. Now, in terms of matrices, you should try to pair her with her 4-piece Lyn set. I know, crazy, but this increases your damage on hit and your final damage. But if you can't get that 4-piece Lyn set, I would consider a 2-piece Cobalt and a 2-piece Tsubasa. This is going to increase damage done to debuffed enemies and nearby targets. But if you don't have any of those, then you can always go with a 3-piece Echo. She's very strong in this category because it allows you to get some extra weapon charge when you switch to Lyn for your discharge skill. Now, the last unit for this team is Claudia. So Claudia is a physical damage unit, and she is fantastic at debuffing targets at A3. She will apply something called War Wounds, and this will cause all incoming physical damage to be increased to that target. Now, if you can't get her to A3, she's still strong at A0. Just know you won't see as much value from her. Now, for me, her main benefit comes from being another source of Grievous to apply to the target, which increases all of their damage taken by 20%. Now, during my testing, I would often switch to her to activate her discharge and then quickly build up weapon charge and then switch off. Now, she isn't the main damage dealer here unless she's A6. Then at that point, you can make an argument that she will out DPS Lyra. So that is something to consider as well, but she's still a good addition to the team, even below that. Now, for her matrices, I would go with a 4-piece Claudia set. This increases her aerial damage, but truly the big ticket buff here is hitting an enemy with a skill reduces the cooldowns of all weapon skills and increases the damage of discharge skills, which is just amazing for maximizing Lyn and Lyra's skills. That way you can keep them up as much as possible. Now, if you don't have a Claudia set, that's okay. I don't either. Then I would recommend picking up a 3-piece Ling to increase damage dealt to Grievous targets, or a 3-piece Echo to increase that weapon charge for both Lyra and Lyn. So that wraps up Damage Team 1. Now, like I said, this is a very premium team. If you have all of the 4-piece sets for each one of them, if you have all of them at A3, you're going to see a lot of value, a lot of damage, and it's going to make the game incredibly easy. However, you're going to have a ton of RNG on your side in order to get all of that, right? As well as a ton of resources or the fattest wallet known to man. So I put together the Damage Team 2 for a more cost-effective option. Now, this is probably going to be the route I'm going to end up going. Okay, so to get things started, once again, we have Lyra. I'm not going to go into details about her because we just talked about her. But the next one I want to talk about is Crow. So Crow is going to serve as your main or your off DPS for the group and dish out some very strong single target or passive damage and discharge damage. Now, it's up to you to decide how best you want to use him. For me, if he's A5 or higher, I think he should be your main damage dealer, as Crow can still hang with the best of them if used correctly. Now, if lower than A5, I would shift to Lyra as your main DPS, as she's going to be a little less punishing if you mess up rotation or you don't activate things at a certain time, or if your positioning is a little bit off. Now, if you're matrices for Crow, again, I would go with the 4-piece Crow set or the 3-piece Shadow Swamp. Now, the Crow set is great. It's going to increase your crit damage. It's going to allow crits to apply a damage over time debuff. And again, the Shadow Swamp is going to increase your damage for each nearby enemy. Now, the next one let's talk about is Shiro. Shiro is one of my favorite characters in the game. I absolutely love her whole unit. I love her skills. She's just fantastic to use, super fun to play. So Shiro is great at buffing and supporting your team, especially as early as A1, and it only gets better as you near A6. She's incredibly cheap to acquire since you can buy her from the store using tokens, same thing with Crow, and her damage isn't terrible either. So at A3, you're going to get a shatter buff, and it's going to reset all skill cooldowns whenever you shatter a shield with her. So being able to swap to her and use her chakram as your shield breaker is only going to help Crow and Lyra even more, because they're going to get their skill cooldowns reset and be able to jump right back into the fight and blow things up. Now, for her matrices, you want to pair with the 4-piece Shiro set to further increase your damage and shatter to targets above 50% health. But her 4-piece also gives you a large damage boost for the first 35 seconds of entering a battle. So that's just a huge extra boon for both Crow and Lyra, because they're going to benefit from that a ton. Now, if you don't have her at her 4-piece, then you can always swap to the Robarg set to poison targets when you shatter their shields for a little bit of passive damage. So that is our Damage Team 2. So like I said, this is the more cost-effective option. You don't have to wait for a banner. You don't have to wait for reruns. All you need to do is get Lyra. And then if you have some tokens left over or a bunch of gold nucleus, you can go out and try to pull for Crow and Shiro. And the good thing is, since these have been around since the beginning of time, you should have them already, and therefore you can go out, spend those tokens to purchase advancement upgrades. Now, for the last team, we have our healing and support team. So this comp is designed to maximize Lyra's benediction mode and be able just to kind of post up shrines around targets to deal damage, but also heal your party. This is an incredibly powerful bonus because it allows you to summon healing shrines that your party can then stand near to pick up some extra health, make things a little less stressful, especially when you're in raids or top tier content. And as an added bonus, these shrines will also pass an orb between them. And if this orb passes through an enemy, it'll deal damage, which is great because that's just more passive DPS. So Lyra is going to be the core. Big surprise, this is a Lyra video. Now, we've already spoken about her, so you know everything she kind of brings to the table. However, the only difference is that her skill will change when you're in benediction mode. So if you're in benediction, which means you have 2 support characters, then you're going to see her skill switch over to Shrine Rise. Now, Shrine Rise is going to allow you to place up to 3 shrines in an area. They have to be at least 2 meters apart, and each one will last for 75 seconds. This is the thing I was talking about. They're going to pass an orb and a healing orb through one another, and they're also going to heal anything around those shrines. So Keep that in mind because placement will be key for this team. Now for her matrices, again, we're going with the same 4-piece Lyra or 3-piece Shadow Swamp because Lyra will heal more as her attack grows. Now, next up is Nemesis. So Nemesis has been an incredibly solid passive healer and DPS unit so far. She can apply healing chains, which will provide passive healing to nearby teammates. Now this pairs extremely well with Lyra's passive healing via her shrines, as well as her self-healing with attacks. Now stacking these together will give your party some great heals per second and maybe allow you to kind of push through content a little bit easier. Now, in terms of matrices, we're purely looking to increase healing with these, so the 4-piece Nemesis set is preferred because this is going to increase your healing and your volt damage for yourself and others. Now, the volt damage thing isn't a huge deal, but the healing is one that I was really focusing in on. Now, if you don't have that set, you can always use Pepper. She's a good alternative to charge your weapons as soon as possible. Now, lastly, we have 2 units. This is kind of a dealer's choice here. We have Zero and we have Claudia. So these 2 units will provide different bonuses and buffs depending on how you want to play. For me, if you want more outgoing damage and team buffs passively, I would go with Claudia. If you want more healing and you have the 4-piece Zero set, then I would take Zero for a large damage boost to your team and extra shields. So guys, these are the 3 best teams in my book. It has been an absolute blast pairing Lyra up with these units. Hopefully not a lot will change between now and Lyra hitting and early patches and all of that stuff. I really hope nothing kind of knocks these comps out of contention because they're really fun to play. I had a great time testing them out on the test server. Now, next up, we do have Tian Lang and who he pairs best with. So we're gonna go through the same process with him. So guys, let me know in the comments below, which team do you think you'll run, or is there one that wasn't included on this list that might perform a little bit better? So everyone, thank you so much for watching. This has been Vulkan, and if you like Tower Fantasy content, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.